What's up, traders? Anthony Crudele here, and thank you for tuning in to the Futures Radio Show podcast. Against the odds, poker player, active trader, entrepreneur. Today we have a great lineup to discuss how a poker player and entrepreneur is trading futures. Today my guests are John Magnetta, Jared Tendler, and Morad Asghar will all join in on the discussion. This podcast is sponsored by EdgeClear. EdgeClear was designed by traders for traders. They are a forward-thinking broker, earning a reputation for unbeatable service. When you join EdgeClear, you'll be assigned a personal broker. He'll get you set up, assess your needs and costs, and will hopefully help you save. EdgeClear is currently offering Futures Radio Show listeners 69-cent commissions for most products and 20-cent commissions for the micro indices. Go to edgeclear.com/deli. That'll be also down below in the subscription. And click open an account at the top of the page and sign up with the code DELIEDGE. All right. We've got the full crew here. John, Jared, Morad. John, great to meet you. Morad, Jared, great to have you guys back.
Good to see you as always, man.
Thank you very much.
So, John, I appreciate you. I know media is probably not one of the things that you're doing regularly, so I really appreciate it. And, when I was talking with Morad and Jared about this topic, I think it's such an interesting topic. I am someone who actually I'm a card player. I'm not nowhere near a professional. Jared can attest to that. He sat at the tables with me in Vegas and watched me lose money. It was actually quite a fun experience. And I actually am playing poker tomorrow. I played gin last night. That's one of the things I do a lot outside of trading. And I think there are a lot of comparisons. And before we get into your background, I'd like to just join in with everybody here and just have a little discussion about this. And maybe we'll start with you, Jared, because obviously you've written books on this. You know both sides very well. What are the comparisons between poker and trading?
I mean, I think you can look at the variance factors being the one that's the most common, right? There are just so many variables that are involved. And so in the short term, your results are not going to be reflective of how you're actually playing the game, whether it's poker or trading. So yeah, when I work with, professionals in other industries outside of poker and trading, it's their ability to kind of understand the short-term luck factor, even in a game like golf or even like billiards, where it's much, much less. Their ability to understand that at a deep level is I think, much poorer than it should be. They should understand that as a factor, whereas a poker player and a trader, you have to, otherwise your emotions are going to be highly reactive to that. So I think that's the biggest one. The other one is I'd say that poker players and traders have become very, very skilled at kind of reading the tea leaves to understand how to converge on some certainty in that intense variability, right? You develop strategies and systems to create an edge. And so you want to become the casino, right? You want to become the house in a sense. And yeah, being able to develop that takes a lot of training and a lot of practice. And I think certainly newer poker players and traders struggle because I think they kind of want it to be a lot easier, but then when the reality sort of strikes, the ones that make it ultimately are the ones that have the, I think the desire to want to kind of work through those unknowns to develop a strategy that actually works.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great explanation. And, Morad, I don't know if you play cards or poker at all. I mean, what do you think about the comparisons between the two?
I would be, in this group, I would be the sucker on the table. I'll tell you what. I'm the guy that plays poker, but still has to have the sheet showing me what the different combinations are. But, I've heard some...
tonight, by the way.
What's that?
I have a game tonight if you want to swing by.
I'll fly over to Pennsylvania to do that. I hear a lot of people comparing trading to chess. I think that's not a good analogy. Chess, you can see all the pieces. Trading has a tremendous, and I've talked about this till I'm blue in the face, the element of luck, the element of 50-50 on the outcome of each trade. No matter what you do, it's something you cannot eliminate. You cannot eliminate losses. And poker is the same. You see what's on the board. You know the cards that you have. You have no choice in what those cards are. And your job is to put together the best hand possible given the odds of what's on the board. And to me, trading is much more like poker. We have control. We can always get out of a trade. We can always set a stop or take a stop off. We can push a trade, we can back off of a trade, and poker kind of provides that in the form of the ante, the commitment. To me, the ante, I love using the fact that you have to put money down. You're the big blinds or small blinds, and our stop is really, you're always the big blind, right? So that's your stop. You're having to buy in to to see each hand, and that's essentially a stop. And so the analogy is very, very close. I think poker players and traders have to deal with the same uncertainties and emotions.
Yeah, we're going to get to you in a second, John. We're going to start learning more about you as well. I just want to comment on kind of what Morad and Jared said. And for me, from my perspective, I mean, I grew up playing cards, and hearing Jared talk about the comparisons. I as a trader first, that's what I've done first before I really started playing more active cards. It's the focus. It's about the edge. It's about sometimes the you could see everything right there in front of you, right there. It's all laid out. In some of the games that we'll play, and hold them and stuff like that. And I'm looking at it, and it's like I still have to make a decision, and I have to be very focused. I think it's a great release. I wish a lot more younger people did it, because you're not on your phone all the time. You're actually in a group of people, and you have to actually learn some communication skills, and etiquette and things like that. And I've just been really attracted to it as a great release for me. And obviously, I like the action a little bit. It's kind of built that way. But John, look you're going from the opposite side of it, right? So you're coming from the entrepreneur side. You're coming from the side of playing poker. What do you think so far in your journey to becoming and using trading, the comparisons? He's muted. You're muted, John.
Oh, you're muted.
Let's see. I could probably unmute him. Let's see. Can you hear us, John? He's still muted. Well,
worked out great in test.
We good, John? He's still muted. I don't know if he knows we can't hear him.
Yeah. Can you hear us, John? Okay.
Yeah.
My lip reading's getting better.
Yeah. Well, while John's trying to sort that out, maybe you log back out and log back in. We'll bring you back in. I'll stay with Jared and Morad for a second here, and we'll just talk about this because, Morad, it's interesting. I like the fact that I started to add cards, poker. I've talked with Jared about this, into my, I don't want to say routine, but like one of my releases, one of my hobbies. I actually think Horse put out something yesterday talking about, what are you doing for your hobbies as a trader? And I really like this as, you can control your risk. You know how much you're risking going in. You're going in, and like you said, Jared, you got to find some sort of strategy, which I think was for me also very intriguing. Like, okay, I have to have a strategy here and read the room and the table. We actually got John back. Let's see if he's there. You hear us? As you can see, John is not someone who's doing this all the time.
John, you're going to force us to do this.
Can you hear us, John?
Is that better?
There we go.
There we
We're
go.
in.
I can hear
John,
you. Can you hear me?
We can hear
Yes,
you. I'm going to
sir.
go back to you now. So we were just having just a quick little talk more about it. Like I said, the biggest thing for us was, Jared's went from really more of the poker to working more with traders. But for Morad and I, we're not professional card traders. We're traders first. For you, you come from the entrepreneur and poker side, and you're starting to trade. What do you see as the comparisons?
I find there's a lot of similarities. I started, you said that you like action. I started betting on sports at a very early age. I was working in.
We lost him again.
Hang on, you cut out, John.
Speaking of variability.
Yeah.
Variability in
This is
live
a lot
radio
like,
show hosting.
This is a lot like trading, where you have to keep adapting to whatever the market's throwing at you.
Yeah, exactly.
Jared, you understand this side better than everybody. While we try to get John's audio set up, when we talk about comparisons, let's talk about developing that strategy. I think one of the key things that you have to do as a trader and as a poker player is develop a strategy going in. You can't just go into this and not have a strategy developed, because if you go into trading, as we all know, you start pushing buttons, you're going to get clipped. Poker to me, I think, is, one of those things where I did not realize, when I first started to get into it, if how to actually bet, like how to actually, like we call it position sizing, like sometimes I think I have a really great hand, kind of like learning, when to really to take advantage of that, because you also have to read not only the room, but you have to read what the cards are. Talk about the comparisons in building strategy between the two.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately you want to, especially now, find good people that you can learn from, right? Convergent trading being one on the trading side. There's a handful on the poker side. So those are listening. Learn WPT is a fantastic resource. Run It Once might be the sort of next step up. But at this stage of the game, so much has been solved in a sense. Like, we know so much from a foundational, fundamental perspective that you need to find good people that you can learn from, because it's going to save you a lot of time and a lot of pain early on. Then once you do get started, you want to start small. I think, poker players and traders can oftentimes come in wanting to make a lot of money quickly. And, I hear the stories in both cases all the time of I had to lose sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars before I was kicked in the face enough to actually like do it right. So, if you are going to take this on, you don't have to go through that painful process. You can start small and steadily build yourself up. I think one of the things that, kind of often gets missed, right, is that the barriers to entry for both is really limited to the cash in your pocket. And so, if you were to become a professional golfer, a professional football player, any kind of professional athlete, like, the barriers to entry are so significant that you can't just like wake up one day and say, yeah, I want to trade and here's 10K. Or I want to, play in the NFL and here's whatever, like I want to go play. So the barriers to entry, in those other sports sort of force you to start small and steadily build your way up. Whereas here, you kind of have to be the one who's kind of governing your own process and kind of getting some proof that you are ready to scale up or size up or play in bigger games before you actually do that.
I think one of the things for me is I look at trading as somebody who makes money in moments. So for me, position sizing is obviously, and Morad and I've talked so much about this, is just such a massive part of how I've made money, because I like to press when things are working. And when I got into poker, I looked at it and it was like, I never, the all in to me is not something that obviously we're doing in trading. We're not putting our whole account all in at once, but to understand those moments and to really take advantage of them, because what was happening to me and how I started to get better was it was like really understanding those times where, not position sizing, but where you got to go in and you got to make that, you got to take that down, because that's what I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, isn't that what buys you more time in the game? Like, if you don't take advantage of those times, that basically I feel like I'm losing more than I'm making, and the times that I'm making, I have to be making more. That's the one thing I look at as a similar like mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the difference though in trading is that you can scale up without having to actually like put yourself into a bigger poker game. So the ability to kind of run things up in trading is quite a lot easier if you have good risk management and good, let's say emotional control. Poker doesn't kind of afford you that. You have to kind of build your bankroll steadily and then select games for which the buy-ins are high enough, or the tournaments where the buy-ins are high enough that can actually start to kind of allow you to roll things. I think it's easier to run things up in trading, which is why you see bigger swings, than it is in poker. It's at times kind of harder to lose a lot of money in poker too, for that reason. Not to say that people haven't lost a lot.
Yeah, I know exactly. And I can tell you that the one thing I keep thinking about when I go back and I play cards, and it actually does help me when I go back to trading, is the fact that in cards, I can't press when I don't have a good hand, because they're going to chew me up. I'm going to lose. Like, I ultimately know I see it in front of me. So it really teaches me the patience of like, man, stay in this game long enough, because eventually you might get a hand that you really could take it down and make more money. And that's something to where in trading, and I've been guilty of this, just a lot this year, like, oh, something's going my way. And all of a sudden I'm trying to use, my force of like buying or selling or whatever it is to get the market to do what I want it to do. And it just blows up in my face. When in poker or in any card game, really, you have to really recognize it at that moment and it's already in front of you. You don't have the situation, so you better be patient for it, because you can't just go all in when you know that you don't have anything. So I like that psychological aspect of it. It actually helps me be more of a patient trader. John, do we have you here?
I hope so.
Yeah,
Can
we're
you
here
hear
with
me?
you. Yeah. So
Yes.
let's get into you a little bit. So I've asked you this question, and we haven't really gotten to that point
A
where
few
we really
times now.
have got. Yeah. So here we go. We as Morad and I, we come from the trading side. We use the poker side as a kind of a release, or we go and we do it, and we're not professionals. But we take some of our skills and we understand it when we sit at the table. For you, as somebody who's going the opposite way, what have you seen the similarities between poker and trading?
Well, as you can tell, I am one who likes to put myself in stressful situations. My first time broadcasting, and here we go. With that said, I've always been in action. I started gambling at an early age. I worked from a busboy up to owning a restaurant, and having the pressure of multi people underneath me and having the guidance to go forward, that's always been something that has moved me. When I sold my first restaurant, my next door neighbor was a stockbroker who got me into the market. That was back in 98. From 98 until 08, I had the 7, I had the 3, and then I had a brief run-in with Morad where we were trading there. But up to that point, it was always a commission-based business. It didn't matter as much if I was right or wrong. It was more about just being in the market. It wasn't until I physically started trading that the culmination of everything comes together. And you asked the question of how is poker and trading similar to me. The only thing that the glaring difference is that in poker you get to bluff a little bit. With this, there is no bluffing. You are in it. You've got to you're either right or wrong. And as Morad said, it's the cost of doing business with those stop losses. So I'm all about anteing up. Poker has been a very fruitful expedition for me, if you will. I enjoy the competitiveness of it. It definitely puts you to the test, much like what we see here with the market. So, in essence, I love it. There's nothing better. The thrill of the action.
So I'm going to bring in Morad for this question. This actually came from the chat earlier from Luis. And I think that this is such a great question to kind of put in here now. Morad, we'll start with you. Is trading and poker, are they skills or are they talents?
I'll preface that by saying that I don't believe there's such a thing as talent. I just don't believe in that concept. To me, you are predisposed to liking to do something, and then you spend just a gajillion hours doing it, and then you just get better and better at doing that. Like you look at Kobe Bryant or the guy in the t-shirt behind you, Jordan. It's not like they suddenly stumbled over a basketball, picked it up, and were like, oh, let me take a shot and make it. And now they're getting recruited. They put in just an incredible and extraordinary amount of time training and focused, disciplined kind of improvement. And we call that talent. I think you're just predisposed to loving doing something that's hard enough that it's not hard to you because you don't mind doing it. Like sitting at a piano for 10 hours a day for 13 years. It's fun. But in that fun, you're doing work that other people might find to be a struggle. So I really don't believe in talent. I feel like when I think of talent, it puts me in a fixed mindset in that, oh, I don't have any talent, so I'm not going to do this. I think you just overcome it. I've backed traders that just couldn't trade their way out of anything, and they just put in the work, and then they started to see the results over time. So I think it's skill. Choosing what you follow, knowing what you need to pursue, and then doing the work to pursue it is something that is deliberate. It's deliberate, focused repetition. that gets us there. It's not, hey, I don't have a mind for math. Okay, well, you need to make an effort, as opposed to somebody else who's doesn't mind the pain of doing math on the fly or whatever. And maybe that's where the talent is just an attitude towards an action, maybe.
Oh, I agree completely with that. I mean, for me, when I look at myself, as all I can compare to, right? I mean, I would never say I was a talented trader coming into trading, because I don't know what I would say from inherently that I had that made me better. But I'd say the drive, the will to want to get better, those types of things, those things inside me that said, I'm not going to quit on this, and I also think, like you talked about, like just the mindset. I think this is important. I don't think that trading is for everyone. So I don't want to say that talent is necessarily the right word, but I just think that sometimes some people just aren't really built for it, in the sense of this just may not work for them. And I don't know how you guys feel about that, but I just feel like not everyone's meant to be a day trader. I mean, I feel like that's not something that somebody is more talented than somebody else. I just think that there's something about them that they fit more into that type of, I would say, category, and they have that will and want to do it. Somebody obviously who hosts a podcast, I work with everybody, a lot of people in this industry. It's, people don't want to hear me say that I don't think everyone's built for it, but I really don't feel that way. I mean, Jared, you work and coach with a lot of people. I mean, do you think that's the case?
There's no question. I mean, yes, it's rare that I come across somebody in my one-on-one coaching for whom I say, look, you need to stop. I'm not one to kind of make decisions for people in that regard anyway, but I will kind of guide them in that direction if it's clear that. But yes, 100%. There are people who are not made for trading now or maybe ever. I would say, though, that I do think that talent exists. I think it exists in many of the ways that Morad describes, but I also think that if we look at some of the natural abilities that people have and the range with which those abilities exist, take intelligence or physical, athleticism, right? There are natural, like tangible abilities that can be measured that differ across large groups of people. And so, yeah, I do think that kind of natural intellect, that natural ability to see and read people or patterns and systems, or have athleticism that allows you to jump higher, faster, swing a golf club harder, or with greater hand-eye coordination, does exist on a natural basis. But then when you combine that with the natural passion and love and interest and work ethic and focus and diligence and emotional state and mentality, like all of those other things, then you have the ability to now work your tail off to develop the highest levels of competency. And I think if you look at the best in any profession, trading included, the ones that are at the top very often have checked off all of those boxes, talent included. There's a great book called The Talent Code written by Daniel Coyle. And he describes talent as being the myelin, which is wrapped around neurons in our brain, which basically comes from repetition and practice. And so myelin is effectively like the insulation on coaxial cables and wiring, right? Like how fast can you transmit information? And when you are engaged in deliberate practice and how you have all of these elements and factors that are driven into that I mentioned, your brain actually will wire itself in a very, very efficient way so that you can demonstrate incredibly high levels of proficiency with a lot of ease. So to get to that point, yes, I think it's not just skill or talent. It's a combination of many, many factors. Talent is, of course, one of them, but not the most important.
John, you started from the ground up in everything you've done. Do you believe that you had talent for poker, for trading, for being an entrepreneur, or do you think it was a developed skill?
Ambition started it all, and it was the drive that kept it going. But without creative people, Morad has given so much information. He's been a blessing. What he shares with everyone is absolutely fantastic, and I would say that that's definitely elevated. It's time that's been spent learning the trade. Anyone knows how to play pocket aces, but to actually get in there and know how to play something, feel the atmosphere, everything there, I believe that it took hard work, a lot of dedication, and a lot of study to get there. The getting into trading, a lot of the same things. There are setups. Anyone can learn a setup, but if that setup goes against you, how do you react to that? And that's where I believe Jared has opened my eyes, because sticking to just those setups and being able to fight through each situation has been, sorry for my nervousness here, guys, but with that said, it's the mental aspect of it. This isn't built for everyone. No, not just anyone can get in there and play a good hand of poker. Not anyone can just get in there and trade the way that what it takes to be successful in this. And when I first started trading, I had the confidence to get in there and go and do it, and I was having great success. But it wasn't until one losing day turned into 2 losing days, turned into 3 losing days, and then that pattern of the mental mindset, that the reason we're here today, that mental mindset really started to slip, and I had to pull back. I had to basically find myself again, and I've been able to do that. I'm starting to see the consistency once again, and yes, I've seen the highs and the lows of trading. I've seen the highs and lows of poker, and it's not made for everyone. I've doubted myself, but now I'm back on that path, and with a little hard work, I think that this is going to work out well.
I want to stay with you just for a second here. What has been the greatest challenge for you coming from the poker and entrepreneur side to learning how to trade?
I believe it's dealing with myself, being able to face my own fears. I've spent a few days now in Jared's book, and it's pointed out some of the flaws that I have in myself. The market, I've had some of the misconceptions of the market's trying to hunt down my stops. The market's trying to attack me. It's definitely some of those things where I felt like it was personal, and it's not. It's dealing with my own personality. It's dealing with my own fears, my own inhibitions. And I think that now I am starting to recognize those things. And because of that, I am able to recognize, take a step back and say, okay, hey, this isn't it. It wasn't very difficult to make money. It's my difficulties is holding on to the money. Like I said, facing my own fears, getting out of my own way, place the trade, make money on the trade, analyze the next situation. Don't just jump right back into it because there's action, there's something going on. If I kind of gave the analogy before, pocket aces is something everyone can do. A setup where there's a moving average crossover or trading off a VWAP or something like that. That's something that's easy to do. It's once I've pocketed that money, and how do I prevent myself from chasing the next move? Or it's exciting, it's fun, it's good to be in the action, and I think it's my own reservations holding myself back that is something that I'm just now recognizing, something that I'm just now able to start building on, giving that foundation.
I want to ask you another question before I go back to the guys. And we've been talking a lot today, and now that we got you here engaged, I want to stay with you for a second. And when you learned your execution of like how to handle those pocket aces when you are playing poker, when you got to trading, how much of that skill transferred over to seizing moments, to identifying moments, to being patient for moments?
I believe, just to reference the pocket aces, there are setups that are just, they're given, but I think that builds that confidence that I have seen as a hindrance in myself. I get overconfident. One setup leads to 2. Okay, all right, now we've got something going here. And one thing that I can honestly say is that some of my worst days have come after some of my best days. It's the overconfidence that will feed into it, and it's finding that one setup that leads to the next one. I love pocket aces. I think everybody loves pocket aces, but I'll get in there with deuce 3. I'll get in there with a 9-7 offsuit. I like to mix it up. I think it's more about, to reference what you had said earlier, is trading for everyone, is poker for everyone. I think that it's being able to capitalize and see in other people those that are uncomfortable. In the poker world, I have no fear. I get in there and I can mix it up with just about anybody. I think that's what levels it off. I can't play basketball with Michael Jordan, but I can get on a poker table with Michael Jordan, and as long as he doesn't throw his money around too much, I can hang with him just a little bit. In the world of trading, it's not what others are doing, it's what I'm doing. It's being able to control or manage my own emotions. And Jared makes mention of compounding emotions, and it's, it starts off great. I put on a great trade. We roll out of Morad's morning prep video. I've got a good mindset. I know where I'm going to go. One trade that works turns to 2, turns to 3. All right, we're having a great day. All right, now we get into the Euro close, and now we're into the lunchtime, and I still want that action. I still want to go chase, but even though the volume's not there, one bad decision leads to a second, leads to a third, and now what was a great day turns into a bad day. So again, I believe it's all about emotion. It's all about what you can control. Can you control your emotions and continue to build on that and have success? That's where I'm at now. I feel like I saw great things in the beginning, then I went through a downturn, and now I feel like I'm starting to turn things around because I am getting control of those emotions.
That's awesome. And John, you're doing a fantastic job. I know you say you're dealing with the nervousness.
I don't feel like
but
it.
Yeah, no, but I'm gonna tell you what, it's we can't tell you how much we appreciate you here. Audience has been saying that as well. We're gonna take a quick 30-second break. Let John grab a sip of water. When we come back, more. What are we giving away?
We're giving away 3 Air Jordan shoes, like the ones you like to wear.
I may have a couple pairs of those. You might see my name incognito and maybe trying to win one of those in chat. We'll see.
We were considering shipping them down to you in Florida, having you sign them, and then ship them out to the winners. They may be worth something big someday. Who knows? So we're giving away 3 Air Jordans. So we're going to draw for 3 winners, 3 runners-up. And then Jared here threw in his master class with the Trader Lion, and that's worth about $700 or so, and he's throwing that in, and we're doing a separate drawing for that because you had to select that separately and answer yes to all of the questions. So there's a separate picker wheel. I'll be honest with you, I expected like 5 people to show up for that, and we have a lot for Jared's class. So Jared, get ready. Awesome. But we're giving out one of those as well.
Yeah, because that's a commitment. That shows where they are in their careers, and needing that. And, Jared, thank you so much, man. You know how much I appreciate everything you do for the trading community. While we're gone for that 30 seconds, put a yes or a no if you play poker, because we want to hear from you. Stay engaged. Keep putting your comments and questions in there. Back in 30.
Streamline your trading setup with Edge Clear, the forward-thinking broker for active traders. From our unbeatable service with an assigned broker to Edge Pro X, our robust and reliable trading platform, Edge Clear offers more than transparent fees and fair prices. Designed by traders for traders, we combine the best of technology, service, and risk control. Our dedicated brokers are here to help you grow. Join Edge Clear today and elevate your trading business.
So thank you, everybody, for participating in that chat. And what I find really interesting, couple things. Number one is not a ton of you play poker, but a lot of you tuned in to the show to see maybe the comparisons or to hear from someone like John, who comes from the poker side, that comes from the entrepreneur side, to see what the comparisons are. And I just want to reiterate this. What I like about poker for me, because I don't do that as a profession as I do for trading, it's a great release, and it's one of those things that you can do as a hobby that, you still got money involved, but it can be at any different level, and it keeps you away from your phone. You have to learn how to communicate with others. You have to learn etiquette. It's like learning a language, which I think a lot like what trading is, and it just helps you with that focus. I'm not saying to go and recommend to everyone to go and play poker. That's not what I'm saying, but it's one of those things that I think a lot of traders do because we have that mindset of intensity and everything that we do on a day-to-day basis, that it's nice to do something else that's just not, electronic trading, to have a chance to compete, because I think that's kind of what it is. So I'm going to add this. Wow, look how many people are trying to get these Jordans. So Morad, I'll leave it to you. Let's spin this wheel and see what we
All
get
right,
here.
we're going to spin this wheel, and we're going to choose 3 winners. We're going to choose 3 runners up, and we're going to make this as quick as possible. So here it goes. This is completely randomized. There's no selection criteria other than what the computer throws out.
Tony
That's not
Turno,
me.
a Paisan.
Sounds
I feel like a lot of Italians have been winning this every week. More, I don't know, something.
I know. There's a lot of you Italians. In
There's a lot of us in this industry. Sparky.
That's not me. What's rigged? One time. Come on, baby. One time.
Winner number 2. John's getting into it.
Come on. That's not me.
Z0ZZ. Zaz. Those are the 3
Okay.
winners.
So those are the winners, and we're going to just pick 3 runners up just in case we can't. The winners cannot claim.
One John Doe. One John Doe.
Sergeant Kevlar.
Morad, tell everybody real quick why that you pick the runners up to make sure that they qualify for it.
Yeah, so there are qualifications here. You're required to open an Edge Clear account. Also, if you are not in the U.S., it becomes very difficult to ship a pair of shoes to you wherever in Hong Kong or whatever. So if we are not able to compensate you for the value of the prize, or something goes wrong, then we have someone else that we can who will step up. So some people sometimes sign up for things and become unresponsive, or for some reason they're not able to claim the prize, whatever the reason is. They may be in a jurisdiction that's not allowed to open an account, things like that.
Okay.
All right,
And
so
then,
Trader Mike.
so we got the 3 runner-ups. Edge Clear and Morad, they will be in touch with the winners and runner-ups if necessary. But now, I got to tell you, Jared, once again, I can't thank you enough for doing this. I mean, I'm excited for the person who gets this, because I've talked a lot with you about this. This is great.
Look at how many there are. I am actually literally shocked. When he sent me this wheel, I'm like, that many people went for the Jared course? Not that there's anything wrong with the Jared course, but this is...
Well, like we said, it's next level.
Have to do some work, man.
Yeah.
it's great. I'm just really happy that people are willing to commit. Here's the winner, and then we'll pick a runner-up, and that'll be it.
Tom
99. Congratulations. That's a big prize.
And Jared, I think at some point what I think we should do, and whether it's with Tom or somebody that wants to participate, is that you come back with us on the show and we talk about that course and we get a little bit in deeper into it. I mean, we see how many people really wanted to potentially win that, and maybe we talk a little bit, a little bit deeper dive into that down the road.
I'd be happy to.
I think that's something we do.
Excellent.
Okay, so Douglas Fonseca, look, another Paisan. Do you see how this works here, Morad? Another.
I know. It's
bookends.
Unbelievable. So just a quick recap on the course. You can go to Trader Lion and look up Jared Tendler in there, and he'll give you. There's a video here that gives you a bit of a recap on the course, who he is, and so on. I highly encourage you, even if you didn't win, I highly encourage you to just check this out. It's definitely a game changer if you're dealing with the same issues over and over again in your trading and are not seeing progress. This would be a good place to start.
Yeah, what
Back
I'd say
to
briefly
you.
about the course too is, there were 5 sessions. They were scheduled for 2 hours each. I can talk. So we got into a lot. There was a lot of great questions, a lot of great examples. I think in sum total, there's about 12 hours of content. It's like a deep dive into my system. It takes the concepts from the book and really expands it and makes it very kind of user friendly. So, if you picked up the book and are maybe struggling to kind of work through it with the tools that I use, not only do I give lots of examples, there's lots of questions that are asked. So it's kind of a deep dive, get lots of feedback and experience, some new templates to use to help you guide through it. But basically, it'll take you kind of soup to nuts all the way through my system so that, by the end, you're sort of set up not only just to kind of solve the mental game issues that are plaguing you now, but also to really understand the system that you can use really for the entirety of your trading career.
Oh, that's awesome. Once again, thank you everybody for participation in this each and every month that Morad and I do this with Edge Clear. It's always a lot of fun, and thank you all for commenting in here today. And we've got a lot more to discuss. I think the next thing I really want to get into is really choosing a trading process, because to me, this is where I see where you come from a different, business, or if you come from poker, you've built a business plan. If you're an entrepreneur, you've done certain things in your life to understand that, look, I need to have a process in place. You already are mentally in the right place. You're not just going in and saying, I want to be long NASDAQ. I always say NASDAQ lately is just because it's just been, it's one of those markets you just can't be long in, it seems like. But anyway, you come in, John, to this business. How do you even know where to start? I mean, tell us like kind of what you looked at and what you thought you did need, and then we'll talk about how you eventually built your current trading process.
As a broker, the second half of my career as a broker, I was selling options. And when after 2008, when the market came apart, I got back into the restaurant business. My wife and I opened a restaurant. One led to two, and had immediate success with it. Pre-COVID, I started trading once again, and I jumped around from Discord room to Discord room. I built a few friends where we came together, and we started a strategy writing index options, SPX index options. Had amazing success with it. Essentially what I was doing was selling credit spreads on the day that these options expired. It worked very, very well for me, but the problem with it is they only do it on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So to give myself, we called it trading the outside edges. And what I wanted to do, my previous background as a trader was more of a scalper. So I started scalping futures. I was just going off the setups that I had. It was working very well. Small, consistent gains. Then I would say that my ego started to take over, and I started trading larger, trading more, and I was doing it without a plan. Going through one of Morad's, one of his webinars, where he talks about having a trade plan, having that process. That is when I started to become a little bit more grounded on what I was doing. I was out there renegade style playing every hand that was dealt to me. I didn't have control of the market. I didn't have control of my emotions, and I started to spin out of control. Like I said, after watching the video, after being introduced to Jared, it was like, all right, let's build a trade process. Let's have a plan. So what I did is it started slow and steady, 3 contracts, scaling out. Whatever my risk was, I was taking that off, getting risk out of the way, and basically making the trade free. And that has started to build the confidence, started to build the bankroll, and now I'm starting to see inevitably what I was looking for when I first started trading futures. So I jumped in, I got a little reckless, and now I've reined everything back. I've gotten control, and now I'm starting to see the results that I like.
We'll bring Morad in here for this. Morad, you've trained so many traders, and so many traders have come to you for help and just getting better. So you've seen them from the beginning, you've seen them from the middle, and you've seen the ones that have been doing this for 20 plus years, and you've helped every single level of them. When building a process, what are the things that you first discuss with these traders to help them identify what they actually need to do to put in place to get a trading process that's for them?
The first thing that I like to get into is really convincing someone that they don't really know themselves until they've traded, right? So there's this part of people that says, hey man, like John here, I ran some restaurants, I was successful, or I was a great coder, or I was a great attorney, or whatever. And my answer is always, you're going to be shocked at some of the crazy bleep you're going to do when trades are on. And you need to come to terms with the fact that there's a part of you that's going to be teased out by trading. So it's a lot more focus on expectations, what you should expect. It's going to take twice the money, 4 times the length of time to get this done, unless you rein down the psychological element, the need to be a winner, the avoidance of losses and things like that. That's really key, because then we can talk, once we hone in on that, now we can talk about risk, the fact that risk is just inherent to opportunity, and you're here for the opportunity. You're going to have to get really comfortable. You're going to have to get into bed with risk. And so we start talking about stops, and the fact that our goal is not to avoid stops, but to make them cost as little as possible versus the amount of return that we're going to get. So be okay with taking that stop. I think I took 2 full stops today, and it's just because it's whipping, and it's just, it doesn't bother me. It used to bother me, but it doesn't. The next piece is to answer the question, what is the theoretical basis on which the market should pay you? In other words, what is the idea behind your trades that'll make the market want to pay you? And that could be, well, I'm a Fibonacci trader, or I wait for these moving averages, or whatever. You have to be able to describe what it is that you're doing it within the market that allows the market to pay you. For me, it's paying attention to the auction, looking at the volume profile, looking at day generated levels, all that stuff. But you need to be able to whatever it is. It could be moon cycles, it could be darts on a board. Just make sure it's related to why the market should pay you. That gets you down into figuring out what your edge is. And then with an edge, now you can write a plan that says, okay, here's when I'm going to act, and here's the risk for the reward. Make sure that your sizing's right, and so on and so forth. And then now you got to go into practice, and now we got to do sprints of 30 to 50 trades at a time, look at the performance and statistics of that, fix, repeat, fix, repeat. For 22 years, I've been fixing and repeating. Still, to this day, it just doesn't change because the market's always changing. And that's the process. And it's not complicated. It's simple but hard to do. Really, trading is simple, but it's really hard to do sustainably, mainly because people just get in the way. And this is why mapping your emotions and understanding your psychology, the stuff that Jared has come out and written a book about and has been pushing along to everybody, it's not a gimmick. It's the core of what sustains us as traders. It's really important, doing the work. Most people don't want to do the work, to be honest with you. They just want to get some profits.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, what I want to do now, and I think that the audience is really going to love this, because I know I'm going to love it, because what's interesting to me is that you have a trader like John who comes from poker background, entrepreneur, has built a process now, right? Feels comfortable what he's doing, confident with what he's doing. We talked about earlier today how Jared has his course, and we said it's really next level up. It's not for the person who's never traded. It's for the person who's traded and is trying to get better. Now we have a scenario where we have Jared here with John. So Jared, I'd like to just have you go over a quick coaching session with him and talk about how trading psychology fits in to his process. Because maybe John at this point doesn't know. I mean, I know that he's worked with you and so on and so forth, but talk to him and on how you would talk to him as a coach.
Yeah, no. So at this point, I mean, John has cheated a little bit and got the book. And so, no, he and I have not actually done any work together. John has completed my new client questionnaire. Before I work with anybody at this point I have people fill out a pretty in-depth questionnaire that's getting a bit about their background, which he's kind of talked about. Understanding their goals, their motivations as a trader, their motivations for wanting to work with me, what it's like when they're at their best. It's always an important thing to understand too, because as much as we're here to kind of clean out the crap, there's always still times where you can be operating at your best. And then it goes through the 5 big categories that I address, which is discipline issues, fear, greed, anger, and of course, confidence. So John has completed this, and at this point has kind of spotlighted discipline issues, a little bit of fear, and mostly some anger issues as being kind of the predominant thing. So what I'd like to do is maybe just describe a little bit of what was expressed in that questionnaire, so the audience can kind of have a sense as to where our starting point is. And then John, afterwards, after I kind of read through this, if there's any new things that you want to add, because I do know that you've been doing some work on this since you first completed it. So maybe there's some updates in terms of your own kind of comprehension of some of the issues. So the discipline issues that you express here, I actually want to categorize as not discipline issues. And I know a bit of a kind of a bait and switch here for the audience, but for me, whenever the discipline issues are described in ways that make it very clear that they're actually based on anger, then they become a lot less about discipline and much more about anger. But you did say, look, right, what specific discipline problems do you have? Well, I love the action and I need to be a part of it. So there's over trading. There's impatience, right? Because my strategy makes consistent money, right? But I'm still in the learning phase, and at times will kind of be my own worst enemy. Boredom is not really too big of a problem. And you said, what do you think is the cause of your discipline issues? There's a need to be right, so holding a loser longer than I should oftentimes happens. Now, the need to be right, I actually would categorize as a confidence thing, but we'll get to that. As far as fear, primary fear was a loss. Question I have for you as soon as we get into this. There was not any fear of you getting into trades, but it's really about accepting the loss, where a lot of self-doubt comes into your mind after hitting your loss limit, and it makes it difficult for you to get out. And of course, then you'll maybe chase some losers and double down. Now we come to anger, which is kind of where the big issues are for you. Chasing, trading larger, holding on to losers longer. Basically risk and stops go out the door. You lose control, make what you describe as irrational decisions, and have a very difficult time stepping back or walking away. You've described yourself as a problem solver. And so I think of that as kind of a personality trait. And so, yeah, when there's something wrong with trading for you at that point, which would just mean that you're losing, the desire to kind of want to resolve that as quick as possible ramps up. Then there's this sort of tilt of tilts, right? The anger of anger, where you get disappointed and pissed off at yourself for actually getting angry and making mistakes. And then at the end of that will be revenge, which is, your attempt to make back what you lost. People have revenge for different things. Sometimes they'll, rage against themselves. They'll rage against their losses. For you, it's about the market and what you feel like the market has taken from you. Now, I alluded to confidence. You've alluded to it earlier today in talking about overconfidence at times. I do always take it as a point of interest when somebody has kind of some inclination towards confidence, but in the questionnaire you didn't mark that as something that was relevant for you now. So that's kind of generally kind of where our starting point is. But John, is there kind of any feedback or any kind of updates that you give for where we're starting here?
Like one of the issues that I have, if I can relate it to poker, it's getting a big stack, getting in a hand that I probably shouldn't be in, losing that hand, and now the urge to try and get it back. In trading, I've had monster days where, I feel like, wow, this is so easy, and I take my foot off the gas just a little bit, and it's like, all right, let's put on one more trade, and then that trade loses, and it's a the rotation size is, let's say, 4 points, and now all of a sudden this one's there's an impulse or something like that. All right, well, let me add to the position. And I think one of the things that definitely assisted in my slippage was in the form of slippage, I was a little slow with the mouse. I would click and the market would run away from me. I'd come in with a limit order. It runs away from me, and now I find myself chasing. So to eliminate that, I got a Stream Deck and turned it into a controller. And I was able, just with the click of a button, market order, market order, market order. But one of the issues that I was having with that was I was relying on myself to stop the loss. Using this Elgato, it wasn't so much of a bracket order where I had a target and I had a stop loss that was already in place. I'm relying on myself. And all right, well, I know that this is the level that it should support. If it breaks this level, get out. And then it would break that level. And instead of getting out, now I'm adding another contract. And now I'm adding 2 contracts. And now I'm proverbially all in. And it's like, oh crap, it's going against me. Now what do I do? And there's my daily loss limit. All right, I'm out. And now I'm angry at myself for the whole thing. So yes, I did cheat. I did get the book. I wanted to be a little prepared for what we were doing here. And what I see happening is it's the trigger. One thing would trigger one emotional outbreak, and then that triggers the next one, and then that triggers the next one. And it's like, holy crap, wow, the realization is set in. Yeah, I've got issues over here, and anger would inevitably be the one that would get there. And Morad, when you were speaking earlier about the process, the one thing that came to mind is something Mike Tyson said: everybody has a plan until they get punched in the nose. So taking that shot to the nose. All right, do I stand up and get back in there and get back into it, or do I tuck my tail between my legs and walk away from this? And tucking my tail has never been anything that's really been in my forte. So I want to fight, I want to get in there, but sometimes once that triggering effect takes place, one thing leads to the next. If I didn't have the daily stop limit, I probably would have blown my account a long time ago. So I'm thankful for that. Giancarlo, here's your shout out, buddy. Thank you for working with me in the very beginning. I thought it was stupid for me to go in there and do it, but yes, it saved me plenty. So thank you, sir. Morad, you got yourself a good guy there.
So let's now talk about what we're going to do here, John. We've got kind of limited time here, but for me, the number one priority is always mapping your pattern, right? Morad mentioned this earlier as being a key kind of part of my system. What that means is you need to spend some time actually scaling your anger so that you can identify the early warning signs, maybe even before that trigger starts to become recognizable to you now. Right. And anytime that a client has worked with this, and it is almost impossible for you not to identify more signals of the anger, the more you spend time looking at it. So what I would suggest you do is have a notepad open, write down, changes in your thought pattern, changes in your decision making. If there's some physical signs, right, of maybe some itchiness in your hands, kind of hyper focusing on certain charts. Maybe even just being hyper-focused on P&L, that you identify those in sort of increasing levels of anger, because the triggers might come at level 1 and 2, and you're not really even aware of it. I would actually even suggest that overconfidence is probably the precursor to your anger. So you talked about it before, right? After having those big days, your worst days come after your best ones. Well, if we would define overconfidence as kind of like having your head in the clouds, well, when that inevitably breaks because your process is poor, you're effectively indicating to your mind that you don't have to be as sharp, you can relax, and so your decision making is degrading. Once it gets punished for that and a loss is taken, then that overconfidence is going to get eviscerated. You come crashing down, and you, like many other people, react to that with anger. You get pissed off and you immediately want to get yourself back into that bubble. So overconfidence and recognizing the warning signs that your mind is getting ahead of yourself is an important thing to recognize. So in terms of the mapping, I would map the early signs of overconfidence, map the signs of anger that come. And, I don't know that this is true, but given the frequency with which you'll double your money or, enact some revenge trading, there's an element where you sort of lose control of your risk and lose control of what you're ultimately attempting to accomplish. To grab hold of your emotions at that time is very, very difficult. So I would even suggest that right now, find a way to rip yourself away from the computer after any time you take a loss, even if it's just like literally just walk out the door behind you, right? And go for a walk and use that time to just talk yourself through what you're trying to accomplish. I'm certain that part of the reason that your emotions get so intense is because of the urgency that you have with which to be successful, right? To ensure that you do not have to rely on a day job, to ensure that you don't have to rely on perhaps your restaurants, for income, that you want this thing to work. And my guess is that you want it to work now, and you want the evidence that it's going to work now indefinitely into the future. And that urgency is creating so much extra pressure that it's raising up your emotional reactions, making them more unstable, more likely to make mistakes, and then ultimately inhibiting your ability to accomplish the end goals that you want. So walk out that door and talk to yourself like you would a coach, helping you to get back into a better frame of mind, understanding what your process is and understanding how you make money.
Agreed 100%. And to add to that, I do have the notebook. One of the things that I started recently doing is recording myself. I don't know, obviously you guys saw how I started here, so I don't know if a streaming career is in my immediate future, but what I've done is I've started recording myself just to see the leg twitch, to see the slump in the chair, to see if there's something that, all right, Once that first trigger happens, what's the next thing that happened? How can we prevent this from happening in the future? What can I do to, what's my hard stop on myself as opposed to just what, the hard stop on trading? So yes, 100%. I've implemented that where even with good trades, I don't want to disconnect from the market because with all of my heart, with all of my passion, Morad, I know that you've kind of gotten away from it, but when I was first introduced to you, you were a big fan of Bookmap. And one of the things that I described to Jared is Bookmap is like the ultimate slot machine. It can draw you in and all the bells and the whistles and the flashy lights. It keeps me gravitated to the market. And what I'm trying to do with what you said was even after a winning trade, I want to pull myself away from it, pull myself away from that slot machine, pull myself away from the market, celebrate a good trade, celebrate a bad trade by just breaking away from it, gaining my composure, gaining my emotion back again, and making sure that the next trade is as focused as the first trade, as opposed to, all right, well, it's still going, let me get back in. I hit my target, I'm out, oh man, it's still going to go. Don't FOMO it, don't chase it, don't do those things. So I'm trying to, give myself some even composure, try and get myself with each and every trade that I go with. So yes, I agree 100%, break away from it.
That's right.
Good and bad.
Just say one thing where I think what's great about what you just said is that you're recognizing how much you're understanding and appreciating that you are the slot machine, right? But you are a human being. And so the maintenance to keep yourself reset and fresh and sharp is your top priority. So if you have your biggest winning day tomorrow, take Friday off. There's no harm in it, right? At this point, you want to be able to absorb and be able to make sense of that, right? It's something that traders have such a hard time doing, but understanding how to keep yourself maintained and conditioned properly needs to be your top priority, because when the slot machine breaks down, right? Because the floor comes and races to fix it because they know they're going to be bleeding money if they don't.
Morad, you're muted. You muted yourself.
One of the key things I wanted to point out through this whole process, and this didn't come to light to me until a little bit later in my career. I went from trading equities to futures. When I was training guys, one of the key things I was trying to impress on them that didn't register with me is awareness. The whole process is being aware. Like the difference between me and the guy in the trading floor next to me who was swinging 600 lots in the bonds is that I wasn't really aware. I was almost like I was captive to my emotions, like John is describing. And what Jared's process is doing is helping you become aware of every little step along the way. And it's awareness that brings you back to understanding what happens so that you can maintain the awareness and maintain control of what happens next, because stuff happens, emotions happens, shit happens. And it's what we do as a result is what makes the difference. That's the key. You don't have to respond to being angry. You don't have to FOMO just because you're angry. Just be aware that you're angry and have the awareness enough to say, you know what, I'm going to push off my desk for a bit, walk outside for 5 minutes, come back, reset, and see what I can do with the rest of my day. That's the key.
Yeah, that was awesome. I actually want to get to the questions from chat now. I've got a lot of comments, a lot of questions. I'm going to go with some of the questions from earlier too, and I'm sure some of these we've already answered, but I always want to make sure everybody knows I read their questions and I like to put them in here. This is just a quick fun one to start with. I mean, this will be for John and Jared. Is how important is a poker face in poker?
John, you want to take it first?
I love it. I absolutely love it. It's everything. When I'm playing cards, this started a little bit ago when we're playing the cheaper buy-in tournaments. A couple of my friends, we started something called the No Look Bandits. And essentially what it was is you didn't look at your cards. You were just playing against the opponent. So if you look they say that, your poker face, you're supposed to act weak when you're strong and act strong when you're weak. I think everybody read that book, and that's something that's very hard to pull off. So I love to see somebody squirm in their seat. I don't care what it is. I love to apply pressure. So I hope that somehow this little group that we have right here turns into a poker game when this is done. But with that said, poker face is what it's all about. If you have to be in it to win it, and you definitely have to know your opponents. If you see that somebody's strong and aggressive, stay away from them. Look for the weakest guy. I always think of in the movie Waterboy, where the kicker's getting ready. He's looking at everybody. Who am I going to kick to? And everybody looks mean and aggressive. And then they find the one timid guy who's sitting there. He's like, all right, that's the one I'm kicking it to. And that's where you start on a poker table. Find the weakest guy there. Doyle once said it. If you can't find the fish on the table, it's probably you. So don't be the fish.
Yeah.
I would just expand that it's not just poker face, right? There's all different kinds of tells, much like there are in the market, right? The indicators that you look for, and timing is actually a big one too, right? There's a lot of poker players that will purposefully take more time. The great poker players will be able to kind of understand your betting pattern habits and how much time you take to make a decision, because the amount of time that you're thinking oftentimes is an indicator. And if you're snap making a decision, sometimes it means that you are just completely freaking out and you're just going to go all in, or no, actually you've got something very strong. So, there's the devil is in the details. So, if you pay attention to any detail, you're going to find some edge.
This is just a comment, and I just think it's something I'd like to hear you two just comment on. Is poker and trading both games of probabilities and incomplete information?
True.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Flaherty's a pretty good guy. He's a smart guy right there. I know that guy. He's a smart guy.
This one, I think we'll go probably to Morad. I think this is a good question for you, Morad. Hello. What should be the max % daily loss, and should it be equal to the daily profit target? I tend to get back profit since I continue to trade even if up 3 to 4%, then giving it back.
The answer to that cannot be canned. It really is a function of where you are in terms of your stage of competence, so to speak. Like early on, having the same loss limit as your daily profit is okay. But really what you want is to always skew risk to your side. So for a learning trader, it was 1-to-1, but as a trader progresses, on a losing day, you hit a daily loss limit. Let's say your daily loss limit's $2,000. Okay, just for a round number. You just lost $2,000, but your average is you make $2,000. Well, you lost $2,000 plus you lost the $2,000 that you didn't make. See, people don't think of that. You're down $4,000 for that day. So now you got to have 2 good days of $2,000 to be flat. So you were flat for 3 days. You see, so it's very quickly, it snowballs into something very negative. So you want to first not hit your max loss limit. You can tell very early on, keep your trades small as you can possibly withstand while you sample the market. I'm a big proponent of start the day trading a one lot and see how things move, how you flow with things, and then press as things work in your direction. Start pressing. That's one thing that traders have done. Like, don't size up right from the beginning. Trade small and size up as things flow in your direction. There's a lot you can do about it, but in general, you want to skew risk to your side. You want your daily loss limits to be less than half of your average winning day. That way you only lose 2 days out of the month versus 3 days or more. And by the way, when you hit your daily loss limit, chances that you'll get 2 full winning days, 2 grand days next, are almost zero. You're going to need a day to just recover, and then you need to walk back into it after a daily loss limit. So you're losing a lot of days every time you hit a daily loss limit. It's better to just stop when you see you just don't have it.
Yeah, I mean, I think this year I've hit my full daily loss limit maybe a handful of times, but I've walked away down Well, a lot more than 5. I can tell you that much. So
You
I
saw
think
what happened in Vegas on the
yeah,
tables
exactly. Yeah, there. I walked away from that. Luckily.
Can
That
I
could have
add
been
one
ugly.
thing to what Morad just said there? Depending on the table, because poker tables, the mix that you get is much like markets. Some markets are, choppy sideways action. Some markets are trend days and they just break away. And as long as you're on the right side, you're going to have a great day. One of the things that I try to do each and every time I play poker, and equally as much, is I look for the proper setup. Like I'm not trying to mix it up on the first hand with just trash. I want something that's going to win the hand so that I can build a little momentum and then have something to build off of that. So my first hand is usually going to be a premium hand. I want to get that first win under my belt, and then I can expand from there. So as far as trading is concerned, I'm looking for a clearly defined setup. I want something so that I admit I am a little bit of a P&L watcher, but I want that first trade to be a winning trade before I ever increase size, before I ever take something that's a little bit riskier. So as far as daily loss limits are concerned, I haven't even come close to it now since the realization of what's happening, because if that first trade is a losing trade, I'm not immediately jumping right back in. I don't want to have 2 consecutive losses in a row. So I'm being more selective with what's going on. So hopefully those daily loss limits are a thing of the past. And now that I've defined my risk a lot more with the stop losses that I'm using and with the overall mental aspect of getting in there, I want to start confident. I want to remain confident. And if the first one goes wrong, all right, take a step back and just, I don't have to that action like I was chasing before. I don't have to be in there. So if it looks rough, the market isn't telling you what it wants to do, then step back.
John, I tell you, I do almost the exact same thing. I'm very similar in that nature. So got a few more questions I'm going to get to. I know we went a little over in time, but we did have some technical difficulties at one point. But so I'm going to make sure I get to some of these more of these questions. And John, we'll stay with you for this is a question for you again. I think it's probably a personal question. When you rated your fears, what did you identify at 10 and what is a 1 for you?
Jared definitely touched on it. I've had success in just about everything that I've done. And with the trading, my fear is that I won't be successful at this. I love this more than anything in the world. I love it. It's fantastic, the freedom that trading gives you. And I have not only want to prove it to myself, but I want to prove it to my loved ones. Hey, I'm good at this. I can do this. So my fear, that I'm not going to be successful at this and I won't get to trade and I'm going to have to go sweat my butt off in the kitchen for as long as it takes to try this again. So my fear is that I won't be successful. As far as what's a 1, I miss Morad's morning meeting. If I miss that thing, that's puts us on the right pace. I got to be there, be in it to win it.
Let's go to AMB, Anne-Marie. Guest on the show multiple times, one of my faves. Anne-Marie is asking, do you find differences between the way women and men respond, anger versus despair, or do you find women have the same types of responses when reviewing themselves? I think this is for Jared.
Yeah, so in my one-on-one work, I would say no. And, Anthony and Morad know the research we did last year. Surveyed like 1,200 people, 11% were female, and we found no gender differences in terms of the issues that were being expressed. Fear was number 1, anger was number 2, and then greed and confidence were there. To me, I find less gender differences and more just sort of personality differences in terms of the types of issues and the types of things that traders need to work on. I just haven't seen it. I'm not saying that it doesn't exist, but from my experience and research so far, it hasn't kind of played out that way.
This is just a fun comment following the coaching session. He goes, how are you going to hold yourself accountable to the coaching session, John? We need a follow-up coaching session between Jared and John. Don't worry. We'll work on that in the future. A lot of people are talking about that. We'll go to Morad for the final question.
Keep asking, guys. Keep asking. Let's
That's
get as
right.
many of these as we can.
So Aaron is asking, how do you figure out what product or asset you should be trading that is suitable for your demeanor? I love this question.
For me, it's a combination. First of all, understand what the product is. So if you're talking asset as in various products within the futures industry, or should you trade crypto versus forex versus equities, whatever. I'm just going to focus on futures because that's where I am. You want to understand the contract specs. You want to understand margin. The margin requirement by the exchange is a big clue as to what kind of a product you're looking at. And I say, try them. You want to get on a simulator, get on a micro, and trade it to see how it respects your approach. If you're like a fib trader, put on your fibs in whatever time frame you like to trade in, and see how they respect it. You have to account for rotations. How big a stop you got to take, the amount of margin you need to put up, your account size, and then your personal temperament. If you're someone who likes things to be slow and methodical, you'll want to go with something like the S&P or the Eurostoxx 50, or a treasury maybe. If you like things to be zippy and kind of with a lot of action, you're looking at the NASDAQ, you're looking maybe at gold, RBOB, gas, nat gas, things like that. And if you want something that's more seasonal and things like that, you're going to go look at corn, wheat, soybean, and the grain complex. So I say try it before you buy it. Go try it on a simulator and see what fits you. It's very important that the product's matched with your risk tolerance, your account size.
Can I add to that?
Of course.
The S&P is a more liquid market. It's a tighter market. It's like heroin. NASDAQ is heroin on crack. That thing, it will eat you alive. And as far as a simulator, I did very well in both of them. I think the reason that I'm here today is because of the emotions. When you're on sim mode, your emotions aren't playing in because you're not as accountable. So definitely start slow and steady. My demeanor is aggressive in attack, and NASDAQ roasted me alive. S&P is where it's at. I love it. It's phenomenal. And don't go chasing a crack. Crack is bad. Just say no.
So this is, I got to take this last question. Trader plays poker. I mean, with that name, participating in questions we got to ask. And he also asked where I play poker in Chicago. I am in Florida now. I've jump shipped here. I've been here for 12 years now. That's how I got to maintain. That's how I got to maintain this tan, Morad.
Hey, the Italians know that Florida's nice. I'm just saying. And we got a lot more casinos down here.
I need golf and tan. So anyway, so my opinion is at the lower levels, it is easier to make money at poker, sub 50,000. However, at the higher levels, trading is easier because you're facing the same opponents as you scale. Thoughts? We'll give this to Jared, and that'll be it for questions.
I'll actually say that the rake is typically a lot higher when you're playing lower levels of poker, so that's not always the case, right? Your edge has to be even greater. And I also say at the highest levels of poker, meaning like the biggest games in the world, are typically out in Macau. There's been some pretty big games recently in Dubai and in Monaco, where we're talking about billionaires playing private games. So the biggest games in the world, if you're a good poker player and they let you in there, you count your lucky stars because you're going to be walking out with a ton of money. So, I mean, it's yes, of course, I think there are, but I mean, frankly, I've worked with, some of the top options firms in the world. They know who their opponents are, right? They are the ones who are making markets. So I think it kind of depends on where you are. It's not like a perfect science in the way that it's kind of laid out here.
Well, that does it for questions for today. Everybody, all I could say is thank you so much for participating. We're talking about you guys, Morad, Jared, and John, and obviously everybody in the audience. Without you guys participating, the show doesn't exist. So I thank all of you. And I will tell you this. You got to follow Morad and EdgeClear on Twitter. Of course, go and check out what Jared is doing too. Jared is, and I've mentioned this before, his book is one of the books. I don't read a ton of trading books. People send a ton of them to me, but when I read Jared's, it was great to I learned a lot from him, and it's truly helped me. So I think if you want to get better, you go and get that book. I think it's just really that simple. Guys, really any final thoughts for today? Maybe we'll just go around the horn. We'll start with you, John. All I could say is, man, you know what? It takes guts to come out here and talk, in front of, a bunch of people live. So I thank you so much for doing it. You did an absolutely great job. And, obviously I wish you the best. And any final thoughts for today?
To the restaurant, Davey's Best Pizza. Let's go, guys. Thank you very much for making all this possible for me. And one of my favorite sayings, they say that it's difficult to soar with the eagles when you're surrounded by turkeys. So look at me now. Look at these guys.
And we'll go to Jared, and we'll end with you, Morad. So, Jared.
Yeah, I want to thank John for just his candor and his willingness to be here. I think he did a great job, as much as you might have been, a bit nervous at the outset. And I would also say,
you can tell.
I'd also say both to you and those listening, the reason that I know you're going to be successful is because your work ethic. We talked about it earlier before, right? Skill, talent. You have the kind of drive and work ethic. You're going to be successful. You put yourself with the right information and the right resources, it's going to be success a lot faster. So for those that are out there who really kind of empathize with John's experience and the kinds of issues that he's dealing with, every issue that I've experienced is solvable, right? Some take a lot longer than you expect, much like it often takes longer to be successful as a trader or as a poker player, as you may expect. But if you got the drive to want to make it work, you'll find a way, again, provided that's really the right thing for you.
Morad?
Again, thank you as always having me on here every month. Really appreciate it. Of course, I want to encourage anybody that is looking for brokerage services to hit us up at EdgeClear. Go to edgeclear.com for that. One thing for me, my whole drive for the last decade or so is to make an impact. So if anybody walks out of here with an aha moment, be it something that John, Jared, or Daly have said, it's all worthwhile. The biggest thing is to just take your time. Trading is a process of evolving your thinking and yourself, and it's not something that can be done overnight, and it cannot be measured by your P&L. It has to be measured by your process, your consistency. So take your time, take the advice that's being provided here, and apply it slowly, and do your own due diligence before you do anything live in the market, of course.
All right, everybody. If you enjoyed the show, share it on social media. If you liked it here on YouTube and you're watching it here on YouTube, hit that like button. Happy 4th of July to all my American friends this weekend. Take some time off away from the markets. Get some R&R. I wish everybody a happy and safe 4th. I'll see you guys next week.
Cheers.
Out of here, everybody. See ya.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Futures Radio Show. If you enjoyed the show, please leave a 5-star review on iTunes. Never miss an episode. Go to anthonycrudele.com and get on our email list for show notifications and for free content that is exclusively for subscribers. Also on anthonycrudele.com, you will find tons of videos and education on trading futures, options, and crypto. Past performance is not indicative of future results. Opinions expressed are solely my own and my guests, and they do not express the views or opinions of my sponsors. Futures Radio Show is produced by Crudele Productions.